Hey everyone, welcome back. We always like to dig into something thought-provoking here, but today we're taking a bit of a different approach.
Oh,
Yeah, we're going to be looking at how some pretty powerful life lessons can actually be found in an unexpected place.
okay. I'm
Yes.
intrigued. Lay it on me.
Fairy tales.
Fairy tales.
Yeah, fairy tales. Not
Nice.
exactly the first thing that comes to mind when you think of like personal growth or whatever, right?
Yeah, not really. Unless we're
Oh.
talking about like the really, really dark original versions of those stories.
Well, fair point. I mean, some of them are pretty messed up, but no, the source we're looking at today actually makes a really compelling case for how even the more well-known versions of these stories can offer some pretty profound insights.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So which fairy tale are we diving into today?
Today, it's all about Hansel and Gretel, but we're going way beyond the don't talk to strangers surface level here.
Yeah, because there's a lot more to unpack there, right?
Yes.
You've got themes of abandonment, survival, trickery, all that good stuff.
Exactly, and our source really emphasizes how these themes, which might seem kind of basic on the surface, actually tap into these like universal human experiences.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Like, think about it. We've all felt lost or afraid or unsure of what to do next at some point in our lives, right?
Absolutely. It's that feeling of being completely out of your depth.
Right, and that's exactly what Hansel and Gretel are dealing with. They're abandoned, starving, literally lost in the woods. I mean, come on.
Talk about a worst case scenario.
Seriously. And for adults, even the thought of being in that situation is like deeply unsettling.
Oh, absolutely. There's something about that kind of primal fear of the unknown,
Yeah.
Being totally alone and vulnerable.
It's like all our deepest anxieties wrapped up in one story. But here's the thing. Even though they're in this totally messed up situation, Hansel and Gretel, they don't just give up.
Right. They take action, they try to find a way out.
Yeah, and our source points out this phrase, gemeinen stark, which means strong together. And you see that with Hansel and Gretel, right? They rely on each other. They work as a team. Definitely. There's that sense of like, if we stick together, we can get through anything.
But it makes me wonder, how does that idea of finding strength through connection translate for us today? I mean, it's not
Well-
like we all have a sibling by our side 24/7.
That's true. It's not always about a literal sibling, but more about recognizing that we don't have to go through tough times alone.
Okay, so like who are the people we can lean on?
Exactly. It could be family, friends, even just a supportive community. Think about your work colleagues, your online groups, even that one friendly barista who always remembers your order.
I like that. It's like a broader definition of family.
Right. It's about finding those people who get you, who you can be yourself around, and who have your back.
I think that's so important.
Yeah.
Because, let's be real, life can be pretty challenging sometimes.
No kidding. We all need a little help every now and then.
For sure. But the source also makes a point of saying that even when we are alone, we still have this inner strength to draw on. And that kind of brings me to Hansel and his, let's call it his ambitious plan with the breadcrumbs. Okay, yeah, the breadcrumbs, not exactly the most foolproof plan.
Right. Like breadcrumbs, birds, come eat those things, gone. It's not exactly a GPS.
Not quite. But hey,
No?
he was thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Right. He was trying to come up with a solution.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important point because sometimes we get so caught up in like finding the perfect solution that we end up not doing anything at all.
Oh, I know that feeling, analysis paralysis.
Right. But Hansel's breadcrumb trail, flawed as it was, it's a reminder that sometimes just starting to do something is more important than waiting for the perfect plan to magically appear.
Absolutely. It's about progress over perfection.
Totally. And sometimes you got to just try something and see what happens, even if it's a little messy. I mean, it's like in the story, Gretel, she kind of ends up being the real hero, right?
Oh, totally. She takes charge.
She does. She's stuck in this crazy situation with the witch, and instead of just, waiting around for someone to save her, she figures out a way to save herself.
Which is a pretty powerful message when you think about it.
It is. It's like she flips the script on the whole damsel in distress thing.
Right. It's more like damsel in charge.
Exactly. So how can we tap into that Gretel energy in our own lives? Because obviously we're not all dealing with evil witches and gingerbread houses.
True. But we all have our own metaphorical ovens to escape from. Right.
Ooh, I like that. What do you mean?
It could be anything that's making you feel trapped or helpless. Like a job you hate, or a creative rut you can't get out of, or even just a bad habit that you keep falling back into.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So instead of just feeling stuck or waiting for someone else to fix things, we need to be more like Gretel and figure out how to escape our own ovens.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you have the power to change your situation.
So it's all about taking that first step, even if it's a small one.
Right. And remembering that even Gretel's plan with the breadcrumbs wasn't perfect. It didn't work out exactly as she'd hoped.
Yeah, true. But she adapted. She kept trying things until she found a solution.
And that's a key part of being resourceful. Right? It's not about having all the answers right away. It's about being willing to experiment, to learn from your mistakes, and to keep going even when things get tough.
So it's like that whole growth mindset thing.
Exactly. It's not about being perfect. It's about being open to learning and growing.
I love that. But it's interesting because even though Gretel was the one who ultimately outwitted the witch, Hansel was still a part of the solution too, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
He was there to support her, to offer his ideas, and to help her stay focused.
It's like he was her brainstorming partner.
Right. And sometimes we need that. We need someone to bounce ideas off of to help us see things from a different perspective.
Someone to tell us that our breadcrumb plan maybe needs a little tweaking.
Exactly. We can be our own Gretels.
Yeah.
But sometimes it helps to have a Hansel by our side, too.
I like that. But I do have a question. In the story, it seems like Gretel was kind of forced into this resourceful role because of the situation they were in. Do you think that kind of pressure can actually help us develop those problem-solving skills?
It's a good question. I mean, there's definitely something to be said for those high-pressure moments that force us to think on our feet.
Right. Like when you have no other choice but to figure something out.
Exactly. But I don't think we have to wait for a crisis to sharpen those skills. We can be proactive about developing them, too.
Okay, so how do we train ourselves to be more Gretel-like in our everyday lives?
Well, one way is to start viewing challenges as opportunities for growth. Instead of getting overwhelmed or frustrated when things go wrong, try to see it as a puzzle to be solved.
So it's like reframing the situation.
Right. Instead of thinking, oh, no, this is a disaster, you think, okay, how can I make this work?
I like that. It's a much more empowering way to look at things.
Exactly. And that shift in mindset can make a huge difference. It allows you to tap into your creativity, to try new things, and to learn from the process, even if you don't find the perfect solution right away.
It's like that saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Exactly. But I think there's also an element of self-belief that's crucial here. Gretel didn't just accidentally outsmart the witch.
Right. She had this confidence in her own abilities.
Exactly. She believed that she could find a way out. And that self-belief is something that we can cultivate too.
So how do we do that?
Through practice. Every time you successfully navigate a challenge, big or small, it reinforces that belief in yourself. It's like working out a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
So it's not about being fearless. It's about building up that confidence muscle through experience.
Exactly. It's about understanding that we all have the potential for resourcefulness and courage within us. It's just a matter of tapping into it.
And maybe that's the real lesson of Hansel and Gretel. It's not just a fairy tale. It's a reminder that we all have that inner strength, that Gretel spirit that can help us overcome any obstacle.
And that's a pretty empowering thought, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It makes me think, what kind of breadcrumbs are we leaving for ourselves in our own lives? What small acts of courage or problem solving are we doing now that will help us face those bigger challenges down the road?
And perhaps more importantly, what steps can we take to nurture that inner Gretel to make sure we're ready to tackle whatever comes our way?
I love that it's like a call to action to become the heroes of our own stories. It's wild when you really think about how dark this fairy tale actually is. I mean, you've got kids being abandoned and lost and a witch who wants to eat them. It's a little intense.
No, yeah, definitely not your typical bedtime story.
Right, but even with all that darkness, there's still this like glimmer of hope and resilience that comes through.
Exactly. It's like no matter how bad things get, there's always a way forward if you're resourceful enough and you believe in yourself.
It's like a reminder that even in the darkest fairy tales, there's always a chance for a happy ending.
I love that. And our source even suggests a visualization exercise where you imagine yourself in Gretel's shoes.
Oh, yeah. What is that all about?
So it's not about literally becoming Gretel, but more about tapping into that same problem-solving mindset.
So, like, what would Gretel do?
Exactly. What clues would she look for? What kind of plan would she come up with? It's like a mental rehearsal for real-life challenges.
Okay. I like that. It's like a way to practice those problem-solving skills.
Right. And it reminds me of what we were talking about earlier with those small acts of courage.
Yeah, those everyday things. That might not seem like a big deal, but they actually help build up that confidence muscle.
Exactly. It's not always about slaying dragons. Sometimes it's about making that phone call or having that tough conversation.
Yeah, those little things can make a big difference over time.
Absolutely. It's like those breadcrumbs. One breadcrumb might not seem like much, but The whole trail of them can lead you out of the woods.
And sometimes those breadcrumbs might lead you in a completely unexpected direction.
That's so true. And that's the beauty of embracing that growth mindset. You know, you're open to new possibilities even if they weren't part of the original plan.
It's like you got to trust the journey even if you don't know exactly where it's going.
Exactly. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Hansel and Gretel, what do you think is the biggest takeaway here?
I think it's that we all have an inner Gretel waiting to be unleashed. You know, that part of us that's resourceful and resilient and ready to face any challenge.
And the more we nurture that part of ourselves, the more we'll find ourselves creating our own happily ever afters.
Even if those happy endings look a little different than we expected.
Exactly. Because sometimes the greatest adventures are the ones we don't see coming.
I love that. So the next time you're feeling a little lost or overwhelmed, remember, Hansel and Gretel, remember that you have the strength to find your way out. And until next time, deep divers, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep writing your own fairy tale endings.